The School Mouse by Dick King Smith. Part 5. Chapter 9, in which Robin obeys orders. Meanwhile, back at the stack, the School Mouse family had settled in. There was plenty of food, for in the straw there was a great many grains of barley that the combine harvester had missed, and there were warmth and shelter among the bells. There was no shortage of comfort, but there was also no shortage of enemies. Ragged Robin's wound had healed pretty well, but each night the cry of the tawny owl reminded him of his narrow escape. Other visitors to the stack included foxes and an old tomcat living wild. "Just stay inside," said Hyacinth to the Mousekins, "and you'll be safe from cat, fox, or owl. They could not get in among the bells." But someone else could. One night, a week or so after the meeting of Flora and Buck, the straw stack was, as usual, a hive of activity. At the cold end of January it was home to a wide variety of rodents, and in the dozens of runways between the bells lived rats and voles, field mice, harvest mice, and shrews, together with a good many ordinary house mice, and not forgetting the 11 school mice. The tawny owl, looking down from its perch in an oak tree, saw a little animal at the base of the stack, scampering along the ground straight-bodied, as though it had no legs. In color it was a reddish-brown, with a white underside, and it was no more than 8 inches in length. For an instant it paused at an entrance hole between two bells, one forefoot lifted, its short tail erect. Then, even as the owl launched itself, the weasel disappeared into the stack. The owl circled and flew up again onto its perch and stood with its back against the trunk of the oak listening. So sharp was its hearing that it clearly heard the sudden panic-stricken scurrying and scuttling within, and then a single, terrified squeak that died abruptly away. Hyacinth heard it too, from the nesting place she had chosen deep inside the stack. Hastily she called the Mousekins to her, and took a roll call. All answered to their names but one. Laburnum was absent. Just then, Ragged Robin appeared, his eyes nearly popping out of his head. "Oh, Hyce!" he cried. "It nearly got me." "What nearly got you?" said Hyacinth. "Oh, it was horrible," said Robin. "I saw it go by, and it looked awful, and it smelled awful, and it was making a horrid hissing noise. And I came across an old rat, and I said, 'What is it?' And he said, 'Weasel.' And his teeth were chattering, and his hair was standing on end, and he was shaking with fright, even though he must have been 5 times the size of the thing. And then it must have killed a mouse. I heard it squeak." "Laburnum," said Hyacinth. "But, Mom," cried the 8 remaining Mousekins, "you said we'd be safe inside the stack. You said nothing could get in. That's what you said." Before Hyacinth could answer, they all heard the horrid hissing noise of which Robin had spoken, and in a blind panic the whole schoolmouse family fled in every direction. For the bloodthirsty weasel it was a red-lettered night. It snaked its way through the straw labyrinth, killing for the sake of killing, and Hyacinth's Mousekins, in particular, were easy prey. By the end of the night it had put paid to 3 more of them. From then on, things went from bad to worse. Fear that the weasel might return led the survivors to risk a search for hiding places outside the straw stack, and as time went by, owl, cat, and fox accounted for 4 more. By the end of March, the only survivors of the family of the school mice were Hyacinth, Ragged Robin, and one remaining daughter, little Love-o' Mist, who had stuck close to her mother throughout. "19 children I have borne," said Hyacinth, "and only this poor mite to show for it." "You're forgetting, Hyce," said Robin. "There's Flora." "Oh, yes, that stubborn girl. I wonder how she's getting on," said Robin. Hyacinth looked thoughtfully at her mate. "I think we should find out," she said. "Find out?" said Robin. "How can we find out? She is in the school. We're in the stack. Not for much longer, I hope, said Hyacinth. It's a death trap. Ragged Robin looked smugly at his wife. It was you who brought us here, Hyce, he said. Hyacinth looked angrily at her scruffy, dog-eared, tailless husband. That's right, blame me for everything, she said. Mom, said Love in a Mist, why did we leave school? It wasn't safe there, said Hyacinth. There was poison. While out here, said Robin tartly, we've only got owls and cats and foxes and weasels. All right, snapped Hyacinth. We will go back, providing Flora has survived. Go on, go and find out. Who, me? Said Robin. Well, you don't think I meant Love in a Mist, do you? It's quite a step, said Robin. Right on the other side of that great field, a long way for an old chap like me, but no distance for her young legs. And she's got a tail, what's more. Love in a Mist, said Hyce. Run away and play. I wish to speak seriously to your father. So it was that some hours later a tailless mouse was to be seen making his nervous way over the field, across the playground, and into the school buildings. Ragged Robin was heading for the kindergarten classroom, where he thought to find Flora, when suddenly a voice behind him said, Hey, you! Robin turned to find himself facing a strange mouse. A mouse a good bit larger than himself, a mouse, what's more, with pink eyes and a coat of gleaming white, who was marching purposefully towards him. Hey, you, said the white mouse again. Who, me? Said Robin. Yes, you shabby old bobtail has-been. What do you want? I want to see Flora. Not on your life, cried the white mouse, and with a squeak of anger he threw himself upon the unfortunate Robin. Chapter 10, in which Robin comes off worse. In his salad days, Ragged Robin had been a scrappy fighter, but those times were long past. Youth and the advantage of weight were on Buck's side, as was the element of surprise in his assault, and Robin fared badly. He was especially handicapped by the lack of a tail, so important to a mouse's balance, and he gave ground in the face of his attacker's fury. Want to see Flora, do you? Growled Buck. She's my Flora, understand? Mine! But she's my Flora, panted Robin, and then he let out a squeal of pain as the white mouse bit him through the foot. The noise of the scuffle brought Flora rushing to the scene, a scene that filled her with horror. Outclassed by his young, strong opponent, Robin was indeed ragged. Battered and blood-flecked, he still fought on desperately on 3 legs, but the outcome of the battle was obvious. Flora thrust herself between the combatants. Stop, Buck, stop, she cried. Don't you know what you're doing? Yes, said Buck. I'm beating up this intruder, nasty, scruffy old thing. What's more, he's gone and bled all over my clean coat. Said he wanted to see you, he did. What's he want with a young girl like you? He's just a dirty old mouse. He's not, said Flora. He's my father. Your father, said Buck, astonished. Yes, and you've hurt his poor foot, and you call yourself my boyfriend. Your boyfriend, said Robin, amazed. And oh, Flora went on, you've bitten his tail off. I didn't, said Buck. Did I? No, Flora, said Robin. He didn't do that, but it's a good job you turned up, or he'd have made an end of me. Oh, father, cried Flora, will you be all right? And where's mother? And where are the Mouseskins? And why are you here? I came to see you, Flora, said Robin. Like I told what's-his-name here. Buck, said Flora. He's called Buck. And he's got something to say to you. Buck looked up from his cleaning the spots of blood off his coat. I have? He said. Yes, said Flora, and there was an echo of her mother in the tone of her voice and the set of her jaw. You are going to say you are sorry. Shan't, said Buck. Very well, said Flora. In that case, I shall never squeak to you again. And she marched off. High-spirited girl, said Robin, licking his wounded foot. Takes after her mother. Buck looked curiously at this old wreck of a mouse. Flora's dad, he thought. Who'd have guessed, when she's so neat and pretty? And angry, he said to himself. Maybe I'd better try to put things right, though I can't see there's any need to apologize. He should have said who he was in the first place. He cleared his throat. You put up a pretty good scrap, he said, for an old guy, that is. I've won a few fights in my time, said Robin. There was a silence while Buck cast about for something else to say. Foot hurt? He asked at last. Yes, said Robin. Ah, said Buck. Another silence ensued. It was light by now, but there was no need for concealment. It was spring vacation, and the school was empty. If you don't mind my asking, said Buck at last, how did you lose your tail? Owl, said Robin. Oh, said Buck. He's not very talkative, he thought. What can I say to please the old devil? Oh, yes, I know. Your daughter Flora, he said, prettiest girl I've ever seen. Robin stopped his licking and looked up into the pink eyes. Spitting image of her mother, he said. Really? Yes, Hyacinth is a great beauty. Hyacinth? That's a nice name. By the way, I don't know yours. Robin. Robin, said Buck. That's a nice name, too. You think so? Definitely. And Flora, of course, is a lovely name. Keen on her, are you? I certainly am, Robin, said Buck. And she's, fond of you? Yes, I'm a lucky fellow. You're a handsome fellow, thought Robin, with those pink eyes and that snow-white coat. Not surprised she's fallen for you. I never could understand, he said, why Hyacinth picked me. I wasn't the best looking of mice then, and I'm certainly not now. Poor old chap, thought Buck, with his busted ear and no tail, and now I've gone and lamed him. Not surprised Flora blew her top. I'm sorry, he said. What's that? Said Robin. I'm sorry I knocked you about, Robin. Oh, said Robin. Oh, that's all right. Decent of you to say so, Buck. Flora had heard every word of this conversation. After she had flounced out, she hid and listened, and on hearing Buck's apology, she came running back. Now, father, she said, tell me, how is everybody, and what are you doing here? So Robin related all that had happened since leaving school, while Flora listened with little cries of, oh no, and Buck's pink eyes bulging with horror at this tale of death and disaster. So I came back to see how things were here, finished Robin. Or rather, your mother sent me, which reminds me, I must report back to her at the straw stack. She'll be wondering what's happened to me, she and little Love in a Mist. That is, if something awful hasn't already happened to them. I must go straight away. You cannot, father, said Flora. You can't even put that foot to the ground, let alone travel all the way back. But someone must fetch them, said Robin. Let me, said Buck. Good of you to offer, my boy, said Robin, but it would be suicide for a mouse of your color. No, I must go. You will do nothing of the sort, said Flora. But Flora, said her father, we cannot simply leave them there in that death trap. We will not, said Flora. I shall go and fetch them.